Monday morning. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. You found us here on the Weather Desk where we tackle today's top weather headlines. A lot to go over with the show as we come off the weekend and look ahead to the upcoming week. We've got a major heat wave that is going to build across much of the country. It's already sweltering in the Midwest and in the central U.S. That is coming eastward, and the Atlantic coast, we're going to be feeling it heading into the holiday weekend. Our weather wrap-up, we're going to take a look at, there were flooding rains, we had extreme heat, fire danger, a lot going on over the weekend. We'll kind of wrap that up. We'll talk about this heat that is going to build across the eastern half of the country over the coming days, and it is going to be a very, very hot, a scorching upcoming 4th of July weekend. We're also going to revisit the earthquake situation. We're going to talk about another earthquake that just occurred a little earlier this morning off the northwest U.S. coast. I'll show you where that is, how far it was from the coast. And then we're going to take a look at what's happening down around Caracas, another minor earthquake not too far from Caracas, and we're going to revisit Venezuela and talk about the earthquake recovery. There are Virginians down there helping with recovery efforts as we speak, so we'll have an update on that. Then, you know, last week, if you were watching here on the Weather Desk, we talked about the European heat wave, the impacts they've been having. And keep in mind, many parts of Europe, they don't have air conditioning because they don't typically deal with the sweltering heat. Well, that heat wave continued into the weekend. We'll let you know kind of how things stand now. We're also going to talk about NASA and their attempt to rescue a telescope in space. Now, this telescope's been giving us beautiful images, and we'll have a story coming up on what they're doing. They're going to launch another kind of satellite or instrument with an arm to try to give it a boost and keep it up there in orbit, because there's been so much solar activity, so much space activity that telescope right now is starting to come down. And if they don't save it soon, it's going to come crashing back down into our atmosphere and burn up. So they're trying to save this telescope. We also have the week ahead for Hampton Roads, and there are some big changes coming in regards to the heat and the humidity. I've issued a weather impact alert for the holiday weekend. So a lot to go over. We're going to start off by taking a look at what's going on nationally, and we do have a thunderstorm watch for South Dakota, the southeast part of North Dakota, and into western Minnesota right now. Some unsettled weather across the northern tier. The southern U.S. pretty quiet. But the U.S. has been dealing with extreme weather from coast to coast over the weekend, and there are dozens of major wildfires burning out west, fueled by hot, dry conditions. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, flash flooding turned deadly. Here's ABC's Lionel Moise.
This morning, weather extremes turning deadly. At the Utah-Colorado border, 3 firefighters have been killed, trapped by the fire they were battling.
It's the ultimate sacrifice, and we never like to hear when that happens. We take a step back and we reassess how we're doing things.
Widespread drought conditions and gusty winds fueling multiple fires in the region, triggering a state of emergency and a second round of evacuations in some areas. One rancher near Eureka, Utah, describing the scene as apocalyptic. A far different emergency in Kentucky. Flash flooding blamed for at least 4 deaths.
We have been hit really hard, wiping out roads and bridges, and sadly, even taking a handful of lives.
I guess it's like kind of scary. Our backyard, it has a lot of water.
With rescues and evacuations in the downpour. This video showing the moment water breaks through a fence, firefighters pulling a driver to safety, in this video posted to social media, and this car floating away in the strong current. A different extreme for parts of the Rockies leading up to the 4th of July. The Georgetown Lake region of Montana bracing for up to 3 feet of snow. But far more Americans are bracing for a dangerous heat wave this holiday week. Heat alerts issued for more than 100 million Americans from Kansas to Massachusetts. Triple-digit temps are expected from the Midwest into the Northeast. Lionel Moise, ABC News, New York.
Okay, we're going to take a closer look at what's going on now with some of the storms that are ongoing this morning. There is a new thunderstorm warning just north of Traverse City, Michigan. We've got this intense activity pushing towards these areas just north of Traverse City. Kind of interesting there. What I really want to focus on, though, is what's happening a little farther to the west. Brand new tornado warnings out now just to the east of Aberdeen. So we'll take a little closer look at this. Again, 2 tornado warnings just issued. Let me put up the information on those. This literally popped up here moments ago. So this new tornado warning, sparsely populated area, only about 1,500 people in that warning area. But you can see the cities around Groton and West Hanson under tornado warning. And another one, which includes Andover, Bristol, Pierpont, and Roslyn, about 875 people. So again, I kind of, when you think about some of these areas out west, that is a not very well populated part of northeast South Dakota, but still some tornado warnings there. And there's a thunderstorm watch, numerous warnings out that way as well. You can see some unsettled weather back across Montana and Idaho, while the southern U.S. is in really good shape. As we take a look at the severe weather outlook today, the chances for storms most numerous from northeast South Dakota into southeast North Dakota. It's a little confusing there with the tongue tying, but the Dakotas seeing that elevated risk into western Minnesota. And when we look at the types of conditions they could be dealing with, well, you would bet that they would have the potential for strong gusty winds, especially there in the northern tier, and then hail focused here from northwest Iowa through Minnesota, northwest Wisconsin, and then back into North and South Dakota. But it's the tornado conditions, then, the threat that I'm most concerned with. Slight risk down through Omaha and over to Minneapolis. Those are some largely populated areas back towards Bismarck. This area that is not as well populated, but still you think Grand Forks, Fargo, some of these towns pretty good size. You do have this elevated risk and maybe some larger EF2 tornadoes, something we'll watch. Aside from that, coming forward Tuesday, still a severe weather threat shifting a little farther to the east, that level 2 threat, Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan, also back across New York State. And there is an elevated tornado threat in those areas, so we'll be watching for that potential tomorrow and into Wednesday. Same general areas have the threat of rough weather. Now, we mentioned the fire danger continues out west. Utah's been seeing those wildfires with dry conditions. You've got to worry about gusty winds at low humidity. And here in Virginia, Western Virginia, North Carolina, we have an elevated fire risk. So low humidity and not so much the gusty winds, but very hot and very dry. We'll need to watch out for that. Temperatures hot in the central U.S. That was yesterday, those highs into the 90s for much of the country. Today, that heat dome starts to slide east, and we've got our really intense heat coming as we get into the upcoming holiday weekend. That's why I have a weather impact alert issued Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, July 2nd through the 5th. Feels like temperatures 100 to 110. You've got to take steps to beat the heat. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a rescue team from Virginia is on the ground in Venezuela helping search for earthquake survivors. I'll look at how Virginia Task Force 1 has spent the last 3 days going through the rubble. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I wanted to talk to you about what's going on down in Venezuela, but before we jump into that, there was a pretty significant earthquake about 100 miles or so off the coast of Oregon. That measured 5.5 on the scale. No tsunami warning issued for that. We also have near Caracas. This was the earthquake that occurred this morning. This one kind of maybe, it was offshore just a little bit, about 18 miles or so, measured only 4.6. Remember, the devastating earthquakes were 7.2 and 7.5 on the scale. So this one was a little one, but I'm telling you, anytime you've got seismic activity in an area that was devastated and they're going through the rescue efforts, it really rattles the nerves. We want to talk about those search and rescue efforts. They are still underway in Venezuela after the country got hit with those back-to-back major earthquakes. But hope that more people will be found alive is fading by the hour. More than 1,400 people have been killed and the death toll is climbing. Here's ABC's Rena Roy.
This morning, time is running out for any survivors buried underneath rubble in Venezuela. 140 search dogs from 21 countries working night and day to find those trapped. New video shows a mother and her 18-day-old newborn pulled from underneath what remained of their apartment building in La Guaira after being trapped for 32 hours, both now in stable condition. The State Department posting this video of American crews helping to pull another mother and her 9-month-old baby to safety, both somehow suffering only minor injuries. And yesterday, 4 days after those pair of powerful earthquakes struck, a father and son pulled from the rubble alive. But the death toll is rising, with nearly 1,500 people now confirmed dead and hundreds of aftershocks jolting the region. An estimated 58,000 buildings were damaged or destroyed. Older buildings and substandard construction leaving this region especially vulnerable. Rescue workers from dozens of countries have been deployed to help. Authorities are now limiting access to the hardest hit areas, saying crowds of volunteers are in some cases getting in the way of the skilled rescue teams trying to reach those still trapped. Rena Roy, ABC News, New York.
Again, there is help from Virginia on the ground in Venezuela. 79 members of Virginia Task Force 1 based out of Fairfax County are helping with the search and rescue efforts. They arrived Friday evening and quickly got to work. We just showed you that video of crews pulling a mother and her 9-month-old baby from a collapsed building, as well as a father and son. Virginia Task Force 1 helped with both of those rescues. Operation Blessing, based in Virginia Beach, has also sent a team to Venezuela. The team includes a medical doctor, a chef, and a clean water expert. All right, we're going to talk some more heat when we come back. Europe is still dealing with record-breaking heat wave. We'll have a look at those conditions overseas. Welcome back. I wanted to talk to you about the hurricane outlook or the tropical update. And we don't have anything that's very definitive. And it's the computer resets there, wouldn't you know it? Now we have that tropical update. We don't have anything that is imminent in developing, but there is this area that's over this very warm sea surface. You can see the heat that's out there across the Gulf and the Caribbean here in the southeast coast. With that being out there, this area does have a 10% chance of development. So we're going to watch this. Again, it's a decaying front and area of low pressure along it. Doesn't look like it has much chance for development, and it will be moving away as that big ridge of high pressure builds in and the heat wave builds across our area. But I did want to mention that to you. As we turn our attention across the pond, you can see again the main development region, Gulf and Caribbean, all pretty quiet. We'll keep an eye to that. One area off to the southeast, but again, only a 10% chance of development. One thing that Europe has been dealing with, excessive heat, and I will say places like Paris and London now getting some much needed relief. Temperatures considerably cooler. Remember, they had triple-digit heat for a couple of days, a few days last week and into the weekend. Now that super hot air, that ridge of high pressure and this heat wave has shifted and is impacting Budapest. And you can see Bucharest and Sarajevo up through Warsaw. It's been incredible. So this record-breaking heat wave they've had, shattering heat wave, it has been baking Europe, and it's been going on for a long time. Olga Midland reports from Poland.
In Poland, we are fighting with extreme weather conditions right now. Thermometers in Wrocław shows around 40 degrees Celsius, which is around 104 degrees Fahrenheit. But this is measured in the shadow. How hot actually is in the city, we ask firemen to find out. They use a drone equipped with a thermal camera. It can precisely measure the temperature of objects and areas. The results were striking. Let's move the camera and check the rooftops next to this street. The result is 74 Fahrenheit, and we can also check the temperature of cars which are parked here next to on the sun. The temperature is the temperature of the car body climbed up till 172 Fahrenheit degrees. You could say is as hot as in the oven, but is it just the figure of the speech or is it reality? We wanted to put it on the test, so we of course asked the firemen for help. We put the frying pan on our car. How hot our car is right now?
We can check the temperature on our air camera, and it shows that it's over 170 Fahrenheit degrees.
We can now share some eggs with the firemen and show you, of course, how hot is in Poland right now, and show how the current heat wave affects the weather in Poland. A record will definitely be broken.
So much heat across Europe. Again, some relief for Western Europe, finally. All right, NASA is racing to stop an aging space telescope from crashing back down to Earth. More on the first of its kind rescue mission. Welcome back. We're going to focus on this upcoming dangerous heat wave. But before we get to that, I want to share with you something we're following. It's a complicated, never before attempted rescue mission in space, and it's all to save a telescope that just needs a boost. Here's ABC's Sophie Flay.
It's a $30 million gamble to save a $500 million telescope.
Nothing like this has ever been flown before.
The Swift telescope has been scanning the cosmos for decades, capturing some of the biggest explosions in the universe, like supernovas. But it's now set to crash back down to Earth this fall because of intense solar activity dragging it down. Without help, it will meet fiery fate in Earth's atmosphere. So NASA is turning to a first-of-its-kind fix. It's hired a startup company called Catalyst Space to build a 3-armed robot to come to the rescue. It's called Link. It will launch as soon as tomorrow over the Pacific. The mission? Chase down the telescope, grab it, and give it a giant boost to raise it to a higher, safer orbit.
It has tremendous amounts of maneuverability. Robotic arms to be able to grip onto the frame of a satellite, to be able to push this multi-ton, $500 million satellite back up higher in altitude.
The mission came together fast, only 9 months from contract to launch. There's no guarantee it will be successful.
A traditional aerospace program like this might take 5 years. And so our job was to put a shot on goal.
The Swift telescope may just be the start. The Hubble telescope is also losing altitude. Catalyst says its next generation robot could one day save Hubble.
We as a country have been very good at putting things into space. We have companies like SpaceX that are building rockets. But if we're really going to unlock what comes next in space, we have to get good at doing things in space.
If the mission is successful, the Swift telescope could be back studying the stars by September. Sophie Flay, ABC News, New York.
That is so wild, but it makes perfect sense. If we can just give it a little nudge, keep it up there in space longer, that would be awesome. All right, we're going to talk about something that is not awesome. And again, that's that dangerous heat wave I said was building. We already mentioned I do have a weather impact alert for this weekend. Starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 2nd through the 5th, feels like temperatures during the peak heating of the afternoon between 100 and 110. And many areas, I think, are going to be on the high end of that range, 105 to 110. So we're going to be watching that. Folks will need to beat the heat and remember all of those hot weather safety practices like staying hydrated, limiting maybe the little kids' outdoor activities during the heating of the day as well. Remember your pets, be a good neighbor, check on folks that may be a little more vulnerable, like the elderly or people that have illnesses, respiratory and cardiac illnesses, may need to use extra caution with this dangerous heat building over the weekend. All right, you can see this morning we've got some clouds out there, but those clouds are thinning out as we get into the afternoon. It's going to be nice, partly to mostly sunny. If you like the warmer weather, today's temperature will be the coolest of the week. Highs in the upper 70s to low 80s. Then we start to warm it up. Tomorrow we're going to be up into the 80s. I think mid 80s, upper 80s inland. But we're really just getting started on that warm up as the winds shift around a bit. Our temperatures on Wednesday getting up in the lower to mid 90s, and then it gets even hotter after that. So the heat is coming. One way to beat the heat is by getting out to the ocean front. You see some of the waves there. We do have a moderate threat of rip currents. Dew points now in the low 70s as we check in with the Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview. UV index very high. I know it's cloudy, but we are going to see more sunshine later on. Conditions not too bad out on the water. It will be a bit windier, though, late afternoon with gusts 15 to 20 knots there on the ocean waters east of Virginia Beach. Highs today will reach the lower to mid 80s. As you can see, it will be cooler towards the ocean front, upper 70s right there. As we look off to the north, temperatures also in the upper 70s for the eastern shore, low to mid 80s for the peninsula, the middle peninsula around Gloucester. We'll see similar temperatures down to the south, Edenton, Hertford, Elizabeth City around 81, upper 70s at the Outer Banks. Tonight's low near 70. Tomorrow we're back up right around 85. And after that, here comes the heat. You see that dangerous heat building Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Slight risk, maybe a few isolated showers or storms later in the weekend, Saturday into Sunday. Want everybody to have a happy and safe 4th of July, but again, make plans to beat the heat. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. Again, we do it each and every weekday morning. You can always stay connected with our 13 News Now app.